Rachel Hayes had been warned 3 times already. The shuttle from Earth had barely docked at the Coalition station when the messages started flooding in. First from Commander Burke, then from the Earth ambassador, and finally from some panic coordinator whose name she didn't catch. All of them said the same thing. Do not touch anything that moves. She understood the concern. Humans were new here, barely 3 weeks into their membership with the Galactic Coalition. Every species was watching them, judging whether Earth deserved a seat among the stars. One wrong move could end humanity's chance at joining the greater universe. But Rachel was a xenobiologist. She had spent her entire career studying life, understanding it, connecting with it. When she walked through the docking bay and saw her first real alien, she forgot every warning. The creature sat beside a tall, mantis-like being near the customs checkpoint. It looked like someone had crossed a hedgehog with a disco ball. Crystalline quills covered its round body, each one catching the station lights and throwing rainbow patterns across the metal floor. The creature was roughly the size of a basketball, and it made a soft clicking sound as it shifted its weight. Rachel stopped walking. Her escort, a floating jellyfish-type alien named Drift, bumped into her back. "Dr. Hayes, we must keep moving," Drift said, its voice coming from a translator box that hung in the air beside it. "What is that?" Rachel pointed at the crystalline creature. "A quillbat. They are common pets among the Chither people. Please, we are late for your orientation." The mantis being noticed Rachel staring. It approached with precise, mechanical movements. Up close, Rachel could see its exoskeleton was a deep green color, almost black in the shadows. For arms folded against its thorax, and its triangular head tilted as it studied her. "You are the human scientist," the Chither said. Its voice clicked and buzzed, translated into English by the same kind of device Drift used. "I am Ambassador Trill. This is my quillbat, Sharp." Rachel couldn't help herself. She knelt down, bringing herself level with the quillbat. The creature's quills were beautiful up close, each one a perfect geometric crystal that hummed with faint energy. "May I pet him?" Rachel asked. The entire docking bay went quiet. Rachel didn't notice at first, too focused on the quillbat. But Drift made a strangled sound, and Ambassador Trill's 4 arms all jerked simultaneously. "Pet, you wish to touch Sharp?" Trill asked slowly, as if Rachel had suggested something insane. "If that's okay. I love animals, and I've never seen anything like him." "Dr. Hayes," Drift whispered urgently. "Quillbat quills are razor sharp. They can cut through metal. No one touches them. Ever." Rachel looked up at Ambassador Trill. The Chither seemed frozen, its compound eyes reflecting her image dozens of times. Around them, other aliens had stopped to watch. A group of tall, reptilian beings stood near a doorway, their scales gleaming under the lights. Several smaller creatures that looked like animated plants clustered together, whispering in a language the translator didn't bother converting. "The quillbat is unapproachable," Trill finally said. "This is their nature. I have cared for Sharp for 12 Earth years. In that time, I have provided food, cleaned its habitat, and ensured its health. I have never once touched it. My father cared for Sharp before me. He never touched it. This goes back 600 generations of my family." Rachel looked back at Sharp. The quillbat had gone very still. Its clicking had stopped. Rachel had worked with enough animals on Earth to recognize the body language. Sharp was curious, not aggressive. Those quills were positioned in a neutral pattern, not raised in warning. Sometimes, Rachel said softly, animals act mean because people expect them to be mean. "May I try? I'll be careful." Trill didn't respond for a long moment. Then, very slowly, it gestured with one arm. Permission, Rachel hoped. She extended her hand, moving slowly. Sharp watched her approach. The quillbat's quills began to shift, a sound like wind chimes. Rachel kept her movements gentle, telegraphing her intentions. When her fingers were an inch away, she paused. "Hey there, buddy," she whispered. "You're just beautiful, aren't you?" Sharp's quills suddenly folded flat against its body. The crystalline spines laid down like fur, creating a smooth surface. Rachel's fingers made contact with something warm and slightly fuzzy. The crystals weren't sharp at all when they were relaxed. They felt like stroking velvet-covered glass. Sharp made a sound. Not a click this time, but a deep, resonant purr that vibrated through Rachel's hand. The quill bat rolled onto its back, exposing a softer belly where the quills were smaller and more delicate. Rachel laughed, a pure sound of joy, and gently scratched the offered belly. Sharp's purring grew louder. Behind her, someone dropped something metal. The clang echoed through the bay. Impossible, Trill breathed. The translator made the word sound like a prayer. This is impossible. Rachel looked up, still petting Sharp. Why? He's a sweetheart. 600 generations, Trill repeated. 600 generations of my people have kept quillbats. We consider them sacred, untouchable. Our literature speaks of the ancient Chither who try to bond with them. All failures. And you just more alien to gather now. The docking bay was filling with curious onlookers. Rachel saw species she couldn't even begin to identify. Some had too many limbs, others had none. Some floated, some stood on legs that bent the wrong way. All of them stared at her with expressions she couldn't read. Commander Burke appeared through the crowd, his face red. "Dr. Hayes, what are you doing?" "Making a friend," Rachel said simply. Sharp rolled back over and pressed against her knee, purring like a diesel engine. One of the reptilian aliens stepped forward. It was massive, easily 8 feet tall, with scales that looked like armor plating. A badge on its chest marked it as station security. "Human," the reptilian said, its voice a deep rumble. "Do you understand what you have done?" Rachel stood, brushing dust off her pants. Sharp remained at her feet, clicking happily. "I pet a nice animal. You have violated 6 centuries of Chither understanding." The security officer looked at Ambassador Trill. "The council will want to know about this immediately." Trill nodded slowly, never taking its eyes off Sharp. Yes, they will." Rachel felt the first flutter of worry in her stomach. "Am I in trouble?" "Trouble." Drift floated closer. "Dr. Hayes, you have either proven yourself a miracle worker or a dangerous fool. The council will decide which." "Cool me." They're calling an emergency session. As security officers formed up around her, Rachel cast one last look at Sharp. The quillbat watched her with what she swore was affection. She wiggled her fingers in a wave. Sharp's purr followed her all the way out of the docking bay. The council chamber looked like someone had designed it for giants. Rachel stood in the center of a circular floor, surrounded by rising tiers of seats where representatives from 24 species watched her with unblinking attention. The ceiling curved high above, displaying a holographic image of the galaxy slowly rotating. She had been standing here for 20 minutes while the council reviewed what they called incident reports. Each report detailed something a human had done in the 3 days since Earth's delegation arrived. Rachel was starting to understand why the emergency session had been called. Incident Report 7 announced a voice from the speakers. The speaker was a blob of what looked like living moss sitting in one of the higher seats. Elder moss, they had called it. Human-designated Owen Burke was observed providing unauthorized nutrition to security fauna in Sector 9. A screen materialized in the air, showing security footage. Commander Burke, still in his formal Earth military uniform, was kneeling beside one of the massive guard beasts that patrolled the station. The creature looked like a hairless bear crossed with a lizard, with teeth longer than Rachel's hand. Burke was feeding it something from his pocket and scratching behind its ears. The beast's tail wagged. "The security fauna are trained to be aggressive to all personnel," explained the security chief, the same reptilian alien from the docking bay. His name was Counselor Bryn. "They do not wag. They do not accept food from strangers." Yet this human had 3 of them following him like puppies. Burke offered helpfully from where he stood beside Rachel. "He had been brought in 15 minutes ago." "That's the word you're looking for, counselor." They were acting like puppies. "What is a puppy?" asked a Chither counselor. "Young dog. A pet from Earth. Very friendly, very loyal." Bryn's scales rattled. "These are not pets. They are weapons. They're good boys," Burke said. "The brown one especially. I named him Roger." A ripple went through the council. Rachel closed her eyes. Burke was not helping their case. Incident Report 14, Elder Moss continued. Human-designated Lisa Hayes was found in a maintenance duct, having somehow befriended 3 cleaning drones and taught them to play a game. More footage appeared. Rachel's younger sister Lisa sat cross-legged in a narrow corridor, bouncing a ball between 3 hovering drones. The machines were beeping in what sounded like excitement, competing to catch the ball first. Rachel groaned. She was going to kill Lisa. The drones are reporting higher efficiency levels, admitted a plant-like being from the lower seats. And they appear to be happy. I did not know they could experience happiness. Everything can be happy if you're nice to it, Lisa called out from the observation area. She had been allowed to watch but not participate. Those drones were lonely. They are machines, Bryn roared. Lonely machines, Lisa said. Ambassador Trill stood from its seat. Since the incident with Sharp, Trill had been unusually quiet. Council members, I believe we are approaching this incorrectly. The humans are not trying to cause chaos. They are simply being human. And what does that mean? Asked a floating jellyfish being similar to drift. Trill gestured toward Rachel. Dr. Hayes, would you explain your behavior with Sharp? Use your own words. Rachel took a breath. On Earth, we have thousands of species of animals. Dogs, cats, horses, birds, rabbits, even reptiles and spiders. For thousands of years, humans have lived alongside them. We domesticated wolves and turned them into pets. We convince cats to live in our houses. We ride animals. We train them. We keep them as companions. This is standard for many species, Bryn said. We of the scaled ones also keep companion animals. But do you pet them? Rachel asked. Silence. Do you stroke their heads? Scratch behind their ears? Rub their bellies? Do you pick them up and cuddle them? Physical contact with animals is unusual, Elder Moss said slowly. Most species maintain distance from their fauna. We don't, Rachel said. We touch them. We pet them. It makes them happy, and it makes us happy. When I saw Sharp, I didn't see a dangerous creature with razor quills. I saw a beautiful animal that probably never experienced kindness. So I offered it. You risked injury, Bryn said. I risked rejection, Rachel corrected. There's a difference. Sharp could have raised his quills and refused me. But he didn't. He accepted the contact because he wanted it. A screen appeared showing Ambassador Trill's quarters. Sharp was visible, surrounded by several other quillbats. The footage was from this morning. Sharp was actively pressing against the others, seeking contact. The other quillbats were responding, their quills laid flat as they clustered together in a pile. Since your interaction, Trill said quietly, Sharp has been teaching the other quillbats to accept touch. From each other for me. This morning, for the first time in my life, I held my companion. He is soft. He is warm. And he has been lonely for 12 years while I stood nearby, afraid to reach out. The emotion in Trill's translated voice was unmistakable. Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. This is not just about one human petting one creature, Elder Moss said. We have 72 incident reports. Humans have attempted to touch, befriend, or comfort nearly every being they have encountered. Some of you have experienced this yourselves. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. The human ambassador patted my shoulder yesterday, admitted a bird-like being. I found it pleasant. One of them asked to brush my fur, added a furry quadruped. It was the most relaxing experience of my adult life. They are dangerous, Bryn insisted. Not to others, but to themselves. What happens when they encounter a species that responds with violence to touch? The clawed ones, for example. They are predators, aggressive and hostile to all outsiders. Elder Moss rippled thoughtfully. Perhaps that is exactly why we should send the humans to meet them. The chamber erupted in protests. Rachel exchanged a glance with Burke, who looked equally confused. Order! Elder Moss's voice boomed through the speakers. The clawed ones are withdrawing from the coalition. They claim we treat them as monsters. Every diplomatic mission has failed because we approach them with fear. Perhaps humans, who apparently fear nothing, might succeed where we cannot. You want to send them into the clawed ones' territory? Bryn asked. They will be torn apart. Or, Trill said softly, they will pet the most dangerous predators in the galaxy and somehow make friends. The council voted. Rachel watched the display as lights blinked across the seats. Green for yes, red for no. When the count finished, it was close. 20 votes for, 17 against. It is decided, Elder Moss announced. Dr. Rachel Hayes and Commander Owen Burke will join the diplomatic mission to Fong, homeworld of the Clawed Ones. You will observe only. You will not engage. And under absolutely no circumstances will you attempt to pet anything. Burke leaned toward Rachel. We're definitely going to pet something, aren't we? Probably, Rachel admitted. Fantastic, Burke said. I've always wanted to pet a giant space tiger. Rachel smiled despite herself. This was either going to be humanity's greatest success or their most spectacular failure. Knowing humans, it would probably be both. Fong looked exactly like its name suggested. The planet's surface was all sharp peaks and frozen valleys, like a mouth full of broken teeth trying to bite the sky. Rachel pressed her face against the shuttle window, watching ice storms tear across the landscape below. Nothing about this place seemed welcoming. Those are their cities, Drift said, pointing toward clusters of structures built into the mountainsides. The floating jellyfish being had insisted on joining the mission, claiming someone needed to document humanity's inevitable failure. The Clawed Ones prefer high altitudes and cold temperatures. Burke studied a datapad, reading the mission briefing for the third time. Says here, they're 7 feet tall on average, with retractable claws, enhanced strength, and a strong pack mentality. Natural hunters. Natural killers, Bryn corrected. The security chief had also joined them, along with Ambassador Trill and 2 other coalition diplomats Rachel hadn't spoken to yet. They have killed more coalition personnel than any other member species. Usually by accident, they claim. But the dead remained dead regardless of intent. The shuttle descended toward a landing platform carved from black stone. As they got closer, Rachel saw figures waiting for them. Large figures, covered in fur that ranged from white to gray to deep black. They moved with a predator's grace, all coiled muscle and controlled power. The shuttle landed with a gentle thud. The boarding ramp extended. Bryn stood first, his scales arranged in what Rachel had learned was a formal pattern. Stay behind me. Do not make eye contact. Do not show teeth. Do not reach for them. Got it, Burke said. The exact opposite of how to make friends with literally anything. Rachel followed Bryn down the ramp. The cold hit her immediately, bitter wind that cut through her jacket. She pulled her collar up and studied their welcoming committee. .6 Clawed Ones waited at the base of the ramp. The largest stood in front, a massive being with dark gray, fur marked with old scars. He wore minimal clothing, just a harness that held various tools and what looked like ceremonial tokens. His eyes were golden and sharp, tracking each member of the diplomatic party as they descended. I'm Stryker, the big Clawed One said. His voice was a deep rumble, like rocks grinding together. The translator rendered it into flat English. I speak for the Clawed Ones in these matters. You're the coalition diplomats come to beg us to stay. Bryn's scales rattled in irritation, but he kept his voice neutral. We come to discuss concerns and find mutual understanding. You come because you need our warriors, Stryker said, and you fear what we will do if we leave your coalition. The 2 groups stared at each other. Rachel noticed something the briefing hadn't mentioned. Stryker was standing oddly, keeping his weight off his left rear leg. Every few seconds, he shifted slightly, trying to hide discomfort. He was hurt that Rachel's instincts kicked in before her brain caught up. She stepped around Bryn and walked directly toward Stryker. Dr. Hayes, Bryn hissed. Stop. She ignored him. Stryker watched her approach with an expression she couldn't read. His ears had flattened against his skull. Around him, the other Clawed Ones tensed, their hands flexing. Claws emerged from their fingers, 4-inch curved blades that caught the weak sunlight. Rachel stopped 3 feet away and met Stryker's eyes. You're hurt. Your left leg. Stryker's lips pulled back, showing teeth designed to tear meat. That is not your concern, small thing. You're favoring it, keeping weight off it, and I can see blood on your fur right there. She pointed at his hip. It's fresh. This happened recently. 2 days ago, Stryker admitted. A disagreement with a mountain razor. The beast learned its lesson. Did you clean the wound? It will heal. Not if it gets infected. Rachel looked back at Burke. Medical kit. Now. Burke jogged back up the ramp. Bryn looked like he wanted to grab Rachel and drag her to safety, but Trill placed an arm on his shoulder, stopping him. Stryker tilted his head. You wish to treat my wound, if you'll let me. I'm a doctor. Well, a xenobiologist, but I have medical training, and I really don't like seeing animals in pain. Something flickered in Stryker's eyes. Animal. Rachel realized her mistake too late. I just meant any living being. On Earth, we use animal to mean something precious, something worth protecting. It's not an insult. Show me your teeth, Stryker commanded. Rachel smiled, showing her flat human teeth. Stryker leaned down, bringing his face close to hers. His breath smelled like meat and something spicy. You are prey. Small, weak, with no natural weapons. Yet you approach a predator without fear and offer care. Why? Because you're hurt. That's reason enough. Burke returned with the medical kit. Rachel opened it and pulled out a scanner, antiseptic, and wound sealant. She looked up at Stryker. I need to see the injury. Can you sit? For a long moment, Stryker didn't move. The wind howled across the landing platform. His packmates watched with tense silence. Then, slowly, Stryker sat. The movement was controlled, but Rachel saw him wince as his weight shifted. May I touch you? She asked. You asked permission, Stryker said. It wasn't a question, just an observation. Always, especially for something like this. Stryker gestured with one massive hand. Permission granted. Rachel knelt beside him, aware that she was now within easy reach of claws and teeth. She gently moved fur aside, exposing the wound. It was deep, a jagged tear about 6 inches long across his hip. The edges were inflamed, and when she ran the scanner over it, the device beeped warnings about infection. This is bad, she said softly. There's something in there. The scanner's picking up foreign material. Razor quills, Stryker said. They break off in the wound. The body pushes them out eventually, or they cause an infection that kills you. Hold still. This might hurt. Rachel worked carefully, using forceps to extract 3 crystalline quills from the wound. Each time she pulled one free, Stryker's breathing hitched, but he didn't move. She cleaned the area with antiseptic, applied antibacterial gel, and sealed the wound with medical adhesive. Throughout the process, she talked to him in a low, soothing voice. The same tone she had used with nervous animals at the shelter back on Earth. She described what she was doing, warned him before each painful part, and praised him for staying still. When she finished, she rested her hand on his shoulder. His fur was incredibly soft under her palm. There, that should heal properly now, but need to rest it for a few days. Stryker looked down at where her hand touched him. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most beings are. Rachel smiled. I grew up on Earth. We have things there that would give you nightmares. Spiders as big as dinner plates, snakes that can swallow a deer whole, bears that weigh half a ton. I've handled all of them. You're just a big cat with really good claws. Something rumbled in Stryker's chest. For a terrifying second, Rachel thought she had offended him. Then she realized he was laughing. A big cat, he repeated. This is what you see when you look at me. A big, injured cat who needed help. Yes. Stryker placed his hand over hers where it rested on his shoulder. His palm dwarfed hers completely. The coalition sends many diplomats. They speak of treaties and agreements and mutual benefit. They fear us and they show it. You are the first to show kindness. The rumbling in his chest grew louder. Rachel realized with shock that he was purring. An actual purr, so deep it vibrated through her bones. Why do you touch without fear? Stryker asked. Do humans not understand death? Rachel thought about her answer carefully. We understand it just fine, but we also understand that life is too short to spend it afraid. On Earth, we learned that making friends with dangerous creatures was often better than making enemies. We pet things because connection matters more than safety. Stryker stood, testing his weight on the treated leg. He nodded approval. Gulme, we'll talk by the fire, and you will tell me more about Earth, where prey becomes strong by befriending predators. As the group moved toward the city, Bryn sidled up to Rachel. That was the most reckless, dangerous, foolish thing I have ever witnessed. Did it work? Rachel asked that Bryn's scales rippled in what might have been a smile. Disturbingly, yes. Fire danced in a pit carved from black stone. The clawed one's gathering hall was actually a cave, its ceiling lost in shadow far above. Around the fire sat a dozen of their warriors, all watching Rachel with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. The heat felt good after the bitter cold outside. Stryker had given Rachel a place of honor beside him. Burke sat on her other side, looking relaxed despite being surrounded by apex predators. Bryn and the other diplomats clustered together across the fire, clearly uncomfortable. "Tell us about Earth," Stryker said. He had been moving better since Rachel treated his wound, though he still favored the leg slightly. "You say your people befriend predators. Explain this." Rachel wrapped her hands around a cup of something hot that one of the clawed ones had given her. It tasted like spiced meat broth. Humans aren't the strongest or fastest species on Earth. We're not the biggest or the most dangerous. But we survived because we were smart enough to make allies. Allies among prey animals, one of the other clawed ones said. He was younger than Stryker, with lighter fur. "This makes sense. You use them for food and labor." "Sometimes," Rachel admitted, "but we also befriended predators. Our closest companion species is the dog, and dogs descended from wolves. Wolves are pack hunters, smart and deadly. But thousands of years ago, some wolves started hanging around human camps. They ate our scraps. They warned us when danger approached. Slowly, we became partners." "You tamed them," Stryker said. "No, we befriended them. There's a difference. Dogs aren't slaves or tools. They're family. We feed them, care for them, give them warm places to sleep. In return, they give us loyalty, protection, and love." Burr pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos. He held it up, showing an image of a golden retriever lying on a couch with a small child asleep on its back. "That's my brother's dog, Bailey. She weighs 70 pounds and could absolutely hurt someone if she wanted to. But she lets toddlers use her as a pillow." The clawed ones leaned forward, studying the image. Several made soft clicking sounds, their version of interest. "We also befriended cats," Rachel continued. "They're smaller predators, but perfect hunters. They kill pests and ask for very little in return. Just food, a warm spot to sleep, and attention when they want it." "Attention," Stryker repeated. "You mean physical contact?" "Yes. Petting, stroking their fur, scratching behind their ears. Cats purr when they're happy, just like you did earlier." Stryker's ears flicked forward in what might have been embarrassment. "I did not purr." "You absolutely did," Burke said, grinning. "It was adorable." One of the other clawed ones, a female with striking white fur, moved closer. "I am Frost. I wish to understand something. You touch these animals not for practical purposes, but for emotional satisfaction." "Both," Rachel said. "Touch releases chemicals in the brain that make us feel good. It reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, makes us happier. When we pet an animal and it responds positively, both of us benefit. It's biology and emotion working together." "The Coalition doesn't understand this," Stryker said, his voice heavy. "They see us as weapons. Useful, but dangerous. They keep distance. They fear our claws and teeth. No one has ever offered us kindness without wanting something in return." The sadness in his voice surprised Rachel. She looked around the fire at the assembled clawed ones. They were all watching her with an intensity that would have terrified most beings. But Rachel saw past the fangs and claws. She saw loneliness. "You're social," she said softly. "You need connection just like humans do. But no one will touch you. No one will show you affection. They're too afraid." "We are feared everywhere we go," Frost said. "Cubs from other species see us and hide. Adults avoid us. We try to be gentle, but we are large and strong. Things break. People get hurt. Always accidents, but the damage is the same." A younger clawed one spoke up. He looked barely adult, gangly in the way of teenagers everywhere. "Is it true humans have young that are fragile? Small and weak like prey?" "Very fragile," Burke said. "Human babies are helpless for years. They can't walk, can't feed themselves, can't survive alone. Yet you allow dogs near them," the young one said. "Large predators with teeth. Because dogs know to be gentle," Rachel explained. We teach them, and more importantly, they want to protect our young. There are millions of stories of dogs saving children from danger. They understand that small things need care. Stryker stood, his movement drawing everyone's attention. You're saying we are not so different. Claude ones value our cubs above all else. We are protective, social, pack-oriented. Yet the coalition treats us as monsters. They're afraid, Rachel said simply. And fear makes people stupid. They see your claws and forget to look for your heart. The young Claude one moved closer to Rachel. He sat down beside her, much closer than the other diplomats would have dared. My name is Pounce. The elders say this is a cub name, and I should choose something fierce. But I like Pounce. Rachel smiled. I like it too. It's a good name. May I ask something? Pounce looked nervous, his ears flat. You pet animals on Earth. Would you? He couldn't finish the question, but Rachel understood. She looked at Stryker. Is it okay if I pet Pounce? Stryker nodded slowly. Rachel reached out and placed her hand on Pounce's head, between his ears. His fur was thick and warm. She stroked gently, the way she would pet a large dog. Pounce went completely still for a moment. Then a rumble started in his chest, growing into a purr that shook his entire body. Oh, Pounce breathed. Oh, this is wonderful. Frost moved closer. May I try as well? Everyone can try, Rachel said. Line up. I'll pet all of you. What happened next would become legend in coalition history. One by one, the fiercest predators in the galaxy lined up to be petted by a human scientist who weighed less than their arms. Rachel scratched behind ears, rubbed under chins, and stroked soft fur. Burke joined in, showing them the perfect spot on dog backs that made their legs kick. Within an hour, the gathering hall was full of purring clawed ones, some lying on the floor like giant house cats, others leaning against each other in contentment. Pounce had curled up with his head in Rachel's lap, fast asleep. Bryn watched from across the fire, his scales arranged in an expression of complete disbelief. They are warriors, killers, and you have reduced them to happy, Trill said softly. She has made them happy, something we never thought to try. An alarm suddenly blared through the hall. A Claude one rushed in, speaking rapidly in their native language. Stryker stood immediately, all softness vanishing from his posture. What's wrong? Rachel asked. Coalition vessel under attack in the void sector, Stryker translated. The Hive. They have surrounded a science ship. The crew is trapped. The Hive has never communicated with anyone, Bryn said, standing. Every contact attempt ends in violence. Those crew members are already dead. Rachel stood, carefully moving Pounce's head. What if they're not violent? What if they're just scared? The Hive are insects, Bryn said. They have no emotions, no individual thought. Only the collective matters to them. Everything has emotions, Rachel said. Even insects. Back home, bees dance to communicate. Ants care for their wounded. What if the Hive just needs someone willing to understand them? Stryker looked at her with something like hope. You would try. Someone has to. And apparently, humans are really good at petting things everyone else thinks are impossible. The council message came through moments later. They were requesting Rachel specifically for the rescue mission. She had apparently become the coalition's expert in impossible communication. Burke strapped on his jacket. Here we go again. What's the worst that could happen? We get torn apart by space insects, Rachel said cheerfully. Right? Just another Tuesday. Stryker placed his massive hand on Rachel's shoulder. I will come with you. If the small human who heals wounds can face the Hive, a clawed one can stand beside her. Within the hour, they were loading onto a fast attack ship. Rachel looked back at Pounce and the others. They watched her leave with obvious concern, their ears back and tails low. Don't worry, she called out. I'll come back. I promise to pet you all again. Their purrs of approval followed her onto the ship. Darkness pressed against the viewport like something alive. The void sector earned its name honestly. No stars lit this region of space, just empty black punctuated by the occasional drift of cosmic dust. Rachel stared out at nothing and tried to calm her racing heart. The damaged science vessel appeared on their sensors before they could see it. A spinning wreck trailing atmosphere and debris. Around it, like sharks circling prey, moved dozens of hive drones. Each one was the size of a shuttle, all blade-sharp limbs and gleaming carapace. "Life signs on the science vessel?" Stryker asked. He stood behind the pilot, his bulk filling the small bridge. "Faint," the pilot replied. She was one of the plant-like beings Rachel had seen on the station. Her name was Willow. "They have retreated to the central core, but they're running out of air." Burke studied the tactical display. "The hive ships aren't attacking anymore. They're just watching. Waiting," Bryn corrected. He had insisted on joining the mission, claiming someone needed to provide actual security. "The hive never leaves prey alive. They are waiting for something, or guarding something," Rachel said. An idea was forming, dangerous and probably stupid. "What if they think with a threat?" "We're trying to rescue Coalition crew," Drift pointed out. The jellyfish being floated beside Rachel's chair, its translator box humming. What does that make us threatening?" "Show me where this happened," Rachel said. "The exact coordinates." Willow pulled up a star map. A red marker showed the attack site. Rachel zoomed out, looking at the surrounding space. Then she saw it. A cluster of objects, small and warm, registering as biological matter. "What is that?" she asked, pointing. Willow enhanced the image. "Hive eggs. Thousands of them." The science vessel was collecting samples near the nursery when the attack began. "They weren't attacking," Rachel breathed. "They were defending. We went near their babies." "The hive has no concept of babies," Bryn said. "They are a collective consciousness. Individual lives mean nothing. Every species protects their young," Rachel said firmly. "Even insects. Especially insects." "Show me the cargo bay of the science vessel." Another screen appeared. The ship's manifest listed dozens of samples, including 3 hive eggs in stasis containers. "They think we stole their children," Rachel said. "That's why they attacked. That's why they're waiting. They want their eggs back." Stryker's claws extended unconsciously. "If this is true, then the science crew are not prisoners. They are hostages. Can we communicate with the hive?" Rachel asked. Everyone looked at each other. Finally, Drift spoke. "No one has ever successfully communicated with them. They ignore all hails, all attempts at contact. They simply attack or retreat. Nothing between." "Then I'll have to try something else," Rachel said. She stood, moving toward the airlock. "I'm going over there." "Absolutely not," Bryn roared. "You will be killed instantly." "Maybe, but I have to try." "Burke, I need you to retrieve those hive eggs from the science vessel's cargo bay." "Can you do it?" Burke was already suiting up. "Remote drone should work. The bay is still pressurized according to these readings." "Good. Bring them to the airlock." "I'll take them out." "Out where?" Drift asked. "To the hive. I'm going to return what we took." Stryker moved to block her path. "This is suicide. The hive will tear you apart." Rachel met his golden eyes. 2 days ago, everyone said you would tear me apart too. Sometimes you have to trust that other beings aren't monsters. They're just scared parents." It took 20 minutes to suit up and retrieve the eggs. Burke worked the drone controls with steady hands, guiding the small robot through the damaged vessel's corridors. The crew trapped inside tried to communicate, but Rachel couldn't respond without alerting the hive to their plan. The 3 eggs sat in their stasis containers, each about the size of a watermelon. Through the transparent material, Rachel could see movement inside. The larvae were alive, developing normally. "Ready?" Burke asked. He held a sidearm, though they both knew it would be useless against dozens of hive drones. "No," Rachel admitted, "but let's do it anyway." The airlock cycled open. Space greeted her with absolute silence. Rachel activated her suit's thrusters, moving slowly away from the ship. She carried 1 egg container in her arms, the other 2 tethered to her waist. The hive drones noticed immediately. They turned as one, their movements synchronized and precise. Blade limbs extended, mandibles opened. Rachel could see her reflection in their compound eyes, tiny and vulnerable. She kept moving forward, directly toward the largest drone. It hung in space like a nightmare sculpture, all sharp angles and alien geometry. As she approached, it raised its limbs in what had to be an attack posture. Rachel stopped 10 feet away. She held up the egg container, making sure the drone could see it. Then, slowly, she began to hum. A lullaby her mother had sung to her as a child. The vibration carried through her suit, transmitted through the container to the egg inside. The drone went completely still. Rachel kept humming, kept holding the egg out. She tried to project every ounce of peaceful intention she possessed. I'm not a threat. I'm returning what was taken. Please understand. The drone moved closer. Its blade limb reached out, and Rachel's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst. The blade touched the container. Then, gently, impossibly gently, the drone took the egg from her. Rachel released the other 2 containers, letting them float free. The drone gathered them carefully, cradling all 3 against its body. Other drones moved in, surrounding Rachel. She forced herself to remain calm, to keep humming. One drone moved closer than the others. It was smaller, maybe younger. Its limb extended toward Rachel's helmet. She held still, barely breathing. The blade touched the faceplate, tapping gently. The pattern was rhythmic, deliberate communication. Rachel tapped back, matching the rhythm. The drone's antennae quivered. It tapped again, a more complex pattern. Rachel tried to copy it, her gloved fingers clumsy against the helmet. The drones began to vibrate. All of them, in unison, creating a subsonic hum that Rachel felt through her entire suit. It wasn't threatening. It was almost like singing. Behind her, Rachel heard Bryn's voice over the comm. Dr. Hayes, something is happening. A larger vessel is approaching. Through the swarm of drones, Rachel saw it. A ship that made the drones look like children. It was massive, organic-looking, covered in the same chitinous armor, but built on a scale that defied belief. The Hive Queen's ship. Rachel, get back here, Burke urged. Now. Not yet, she whispered. The Queen's ship opened, and a single figure emerged. She was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the drones, with a crown of blade limbs that spread like wings. She moved through space with impossible grace, her body glowing faintly with bioluminescence. The Queen approached Rachel directly. Every instinct screamed at Rachel to flee, but she held her ground. She kept humming her lullaby, kept her body language as non-threatening as possible. The Queen stopped inches away. Up close, Rachel could see details the sensors hadn't captured. Scars on the carapace were marked from centuries of existence. This being was ancient, and she carried the weight of billions of lives in her collective consciousness that a blade limb extended. Rachel closed her eyes, accepting whatever came next. The blade touched her chest, gentle as a feather. The Queen held it there for a long moment. Then she began to vibrate, a frequency that resonated through Rachel's suit and bones. It wasn't words, but somehow Rachel understood. Gratitude, sorrow for the misunderstanding, recognition of Rachel's courage, and something else, something that felt like an invitation. The Queen withdrew. The drones parted, creating a clear path back to Rachel's ship. The science vessel's bay doors opened, releasing the crew in emergency escape pods. The Hive was letting them go. Rachel turned to leave, then paused. She reached up and placed her gloved hand against her helmet, over her heart. The Queen mimicked the gesture, her blade limb crossing her thorax, a salute. An acknowledgement between 2 beings who had chosen understanding over fear. Rachel made it back to the ship in a daze. As soon as the airlock sealed, she collapsed, adrenaline draining away. Burke caught her, holding her steady. You did it, he said, wonder in his voice. You actually did it. Stryker helped her to a chair. The Queen marked you. That glow on your suit, that is a Hive marker. You are recognized as friend to the collective. They were just protecting their children, Rachel said softly. Like any parent would. The Council will want a full report, Drift said. You have achieved what no one else could. First contact with the Hive. Rachel looked out the viewport. The Queen's ship was retreating, carrying her rescued eggs home. The drones followed, their formation protective and orderly. They're not monsters, Rachel said. None of them are. Not the Hive, not the clawed ones, not even those security beasts Burke keeps petting. They're just different kinds of life, trying to survive and protect what they love. You have changed everything, Stryker said quietly. The galaxy will never be the same. 6 months passed like a dream Rachel wasn't sure she wanted to wake from. Coalition Station Harmony had transformed into something she barely recognized. Where once the corridors had been quiet and orderly, now they rang with laughter and unexpected friendships. A Claude 1 walked past carrying a Chither child on his shoulders, both of them playing some game that involved roaring and giggling. 3 humans sat with a group of Scaled Ones, showing them pictures of Earth's animals on their tablets. Everywhere Rachel looked, she saw beings touching, connecting, learning to speak a language that needed no words. She stood in the observation deck, watching ships come and go. Among them was a hive vessel, smaller than the Queen's ship, but still impressive. A cultural exchange, the first of its kind. Human scientists were learning to communicate through vibration and touch, while hive drones discovered the concept of individual names and personal preferences. The Council is ready for you, Drift said, floating up beside her. The jellyfish being had become Rachel's assistant, documenting everything for the historical archives. This is a significant moment. Rachel smoothed her formal jacket. She still wasn't used to fancy clothes. Give her field gear and mud any day. Do I look okay? You look like someone who changed the galaxy by petting things, Burke said, joining them. He wore his dress uniform, metals gleaming, which is possibly the most human sentence ever spoken. They walked together to the council chamber. The doors opened to reveal not just the usual counselors, but representatives from species Rachel had never seen before. The chamber was packed, standing room only. Even Elder Moss had expanded to fill more space, rippling with what looked like excitement. Ambassador Trill stood at the center podium. Sharp sat beside him, purring audibly. The Quillbat had become something of a celebrity, the first of his kind to be regularly petted. Other Chither families were learning to bond with their own companions, centuries of distance dissolving with a single touch. We gather today to formally recognize a new discipline, Trill announced. For thousands of years, the Coalition has relied on verbal diplomacy, treaties written in words and bound by law. We have succeeded in maintaining peace, but we have failed at something more fundamental. We have failed to truly connect. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Humanity has shown us a different path, Trill continued. They call it many things. Empathy, compassion, understanding. But at its core, it is the simple act of reaching across the gap between beings and saying, through touch and presence, I see you. You matter. Rachel felt her cheeks warm. She had never meant to start a revolution. She just couldn't help petting cute things. Elder Moss's voice resonated through the chamber. Dr. Rachel Hayes, please step forward. Rachel walked to the podium on shaking legs. The assembled beings all watched her with expressions ranging from curiosity to admiration. She recognized some faces. Pound stood with a group of young Claude Ones, all of them grinning with barely contained excitement. Frost was there too, wearing a formal harness decorated with Earth-style friendship bracelets the human children had made for her. 6 months ago, Elder Moss said, we nearly rejected humanity's application to join the Coalition. We saw your compulsive need to touch everything as a liability, a danger to yourselves and others. We were wrong. The word wrong echoed in the vast space. You have achieved the impossible, Elder Moss continued. You befriended the Claude Ones, a species we had written off as too dangerous to truly integrate. You made first peaceful contact with the hive, ending a conflict that has cost thousands of lives. You have taught our companion animals that touch is love, our security beasts that gentleness and strength can coexist, and our children that different does not mean scary. Rachel swallowed hard, fighting tears. Therefore, Elder Moss announced, the Coalition hereby establishes the Department of Interspecies Relations, dedicated to teaching all member species the principles of contact diplomacy. Dr. Rachel Hayes, you are appointed as its first director. The chamber erupted in applause. Well, those species that had hands applauded. Others hummed, clicked, chimed, or glowed in approval. The Claude Ones roared, a sound that shook the walls and made Rachel's heart soar. Burke hooped and hugged her. Stryker pushed through the crowd, Pounce and Frost right behind him. They surrounded her in a group embrace that would have terrified most beings. Rachel hugged them back, burying her face in soft fur. "Thank you," Stryker rumbled, "for seeing us, for teaching the galaxy that we are not monsters." "You were never monsters," Rachel said, voice muffled against his chest. "You just needed someone willing to look." Over the next hour, Rachel met representatives from species across the galaxy. All of them wanted to learn, to understand how to bridge the gaps that had kept them isolated for so long. A delegation from the Crystalline Luminous Collective asked if humans could teach them to interpret physical sensation. They had never experienced touch before, existing as pure energy in containment fields. Now they wanted to know what a hug felt like. Burke took Rachel's arm as the crowd began to disperse. "Lisa wants to start a program teaching other species about Earth animals. Therapy dogs, emotional support cats, the whole thing. Apparently, half the station is requesting pets now." Rachel laughed. "Of course they are. Everyone wants something to pet once they realize it's an option." The Hive Queen sent a message. Drift informed her, displaying a hologram. Complex patterns of light and vibration that Rachel had learned to interpret with help from the Hive drones. She wishes to establish permanent cultural exchange. Human teachers would live with the Hive, learning their ways, while Hive drones would study on coalition stations. "Tell her yes," Rachel said immediately. "Tell her we would be honored." Ambassador Trill approached, Sharp trotting beside him. The Quillbat immediately pressed against Rachel's leg, demanding attention. She knelt and scratched his favorite spot behind his quills. "I have been thinking," Trill said slowly, "about the ancient records I mentioned. The lost species that bonded with all creatures. I believe they were human ancestors, explorers from Earth's distant past. They came to the stars before they were ready, before they could survive here. They died out, and the galaxy forgot the lesson they tried to teach." "What lesson?" Rachel asked. "That strength is not measured in weapons or technology. It is measured in the courage to be vulnerable, to reach out despite the risk of rejection or harm. Your species almost made that mistake again, nearly destroyed yourselves with weapons and conflicts. But you survived because you remembered how to care for things beyond yourselves. Your animals kept you human." Rachel had never thought of it that way. But looking around the chamber, seeing species that had been strangers 6 months ago, now talking, laughing, and yes, touching each other with cautious affection, she understood. The galaxy was dying of loneliness, she said softly. Everyone was afraid of everyone else. All that space, all those species, and everyone was alone. "Not anymore," Stryker said. He had stayed close, unwilling to let his human friend out of sight. "You taught us to reach across the darkness, to pet the impossible." A new group entered the chamber. They were tall and elegant, covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water. Their lead representative approached Rachel with cautious steps. "I am Shimmer of the Prismatic Accord," the being said. Its voice was musical, translated into English by a device more advanced than anything Rachel had seen. "We have traveled far to meet the humans. We are a nervous species, afraid of contact with others. Your reputation has reached our homeworld. We wish to learn." Rachel smiled and extended her hand. "May I?" Shimmer looked at the offered hand with visible anxiety. Its scales rippled through colors that Rachel's translator helpfully identified as fear, hope, and desperate longing. Slowly, Shimmer reached out. Its hand was cool and smooth, the scales silky under Rachel's palm. The moment their hands touched, Shimmer's entire body flashed brilliant gold, the color of joy in their species. "Oh," Shimmer breathed. "Oh, this is... I never knew. We never knew." More of the Prismatic Accord approached, each one wanting to experience touch for the first time. Rachel obliged, shaking hands, patting shoulders, offering the simple gift of connection that humans have been giving freely since they first befriended a wolf at a campfire 10,000 years ago. Burke leaned against a wall, watching the scene with a grin. "We're going to need more humans up here. There's a whole galaxy that needs petting." "I'll put in the request," Rachel said, shaking another hand, accepting a hug from a being made of living crystal, scratching behind the ears of a creature that looked like a six-legged otter. Earth has 8 billion people who love animals. I think we could spare a few million to teach the galaxy how to be friends. Elder Moss rippled with what Rachel had learned to recognize as laughter. A few million humans, unleashed on an unsuspecting galaxy. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, Rachel said cheerfully, but in the best possible way. That evening, Rachel stood again at the observation deck. Ships came and went, carrying the first wave of human contact diplomats to worlds across the coalition. Each ship held teachers, animal handlers, therapists, and regular people who just happened to be really good at making friends. Stryker joined her, Pounce and Frost flanking him. The three-clawed ones had become her unofficial bodyguards, though they were more like family now. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Pounce asked. He had grown bolder over the months, more willing to ask questions. "Leaving Earth? You're home." Rachel thought about it. "Sometimes. I miss the rain, the smell of grass, my cat, though my sister is taking good care of him. But then I think about all of this." She gestured at the station, the ships, the vast universe beyond. All these beings who were lonely and didn't have to be. All these connections that happened because someone was willing to reach out. "No, I don't regret it. The galaxy is less lonely," Frost said softly, "because you could not stop yourself from petting a quillbat." Rachel laughed. "That should not be how history works, but apparently it is." Sharp appeared, having wandered away from Trill. The quillbat rubbed against Rachel's leg. She picked him up, cradling him like a baby. He purred, content and safe. "You know what the best part is?" Rachel said, scratching Sharp's belly. "This is just the beginning. There are millions of species out there we haven't met yet. Beings who think they have to be alone because they're different or dangerous or misunderstood. And now we get to show them that different is just another word for friend we haven't made yet." Burke's voice came over her communicator. "Rachel, we have first contact with a new species. They're nervous, won't come near the station. Council is asking if you can help." Rachel handed Sharp to Pounce. "What do they look like?" "Big. Tentacles. Possibly venomous. Definitely cranky." "Perfect," Rachel said, already heading for the hangar. "I love a challenge." Stryker and the others followed. They always did. The human who pet everything and her pack of impossible friends, heading out to prove once again that the bravest act in the universe was not conquering fear. It was offering kindness in spite of it. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the galaxy became a little less lonely, one gentle touch at a time.